Hey everybody, welcome to the MMA H.E.A.T podcast. I'm Karyn Bryant.
What's up, everyone? Alan Jouban here as well.
So we mentioned on the last podcast that we were going to do things a little bit differently together. Alan, you ready for that?
I'm ready. We're going to wrap it up good for you guys.
Okay, so what we're going to do, folks, is first we're going to start off talking about the main event. Of course, it is Conor versus Cowboy. Then we will kind of take a beat, go on to some other things. Eventually, this is all going to be uploaded as one show on YouTube and one show for our audio on iTunes. But we'll break it up for you guys on IGTV, Facebook, other places, so that if you guys want to just hear about the main event, right, Alan, we can just focus on that. If we want to just talk about, you want to hear about the other stuff, we'll have that as well. I think that might work out well. What do you think, Alan?
I like it because I know when I watch stuff, sometimes I want the hour podcast in the car. Sometimes I just need the 5-10 minute segment on this specific topic that I'm looking for. So we're going to give that to you guys. So I hope you like it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But first and foremost, did you have a decent weekend? I mean, it is Monday again. You know, we're back at it. I know the football was rough. Our teams are already gone, so.
That was it. I was on the couch all weekend watching a lot of football. Bodie got into a bit of a scuffle at the dog park. I don't like when he gets in dog fights. He's trying to follow in his dad's footsteps, apparently, but he's okay. And the weekend went off okay.
All right, so if you can't fight, at least Bodie is. It's a proxy
Bodie's
fight.
following, yeah.
You cornered Bodie this weekend, basically.
I know, yeah. I had to break it up.
Well, yeah, had a good weekend as well. We got together with our old buddy Vlad Matyashenko. I don't know if he was in the UFC when you were there. I don't know if you guys, I think you were there at the same time.
Janitor?
Yeah, the janitor, exactly.
The janitor,
Maybe just
yeah.
you guys crossed over a little bit. Really, really great guy. Haven't seen him in a while. We went kayaking. Who knew? Like, I've lived in LA all this time. I've never gone kayaking here, which is silly. I always do it somewhere else. Absolutely gorgeous day. He still trains people actually at our friend Strong Sports Gym and also over at Antoni's. He's over at Antoni's gym a lot too, right? At Dynamics and Strong Sports, which I already said. So Vlad is an amazing wrestler. He's a Belarusian wrestler. So if people want to take wrestling with him, totally look up the janitor. And he also has a really great sense of humor. Really, really great guy. So you should check him out. But yeah, there's a little fight this weekend, Alan. Have you heard anything about it?
The big one, an exciting one. I'm in anticipation for this fight almost as much as I am for the LSU game coming up. It's both of them are kind of getting me a little crazy, but I'm excited about this one, Karyn. I mean, I think that the majority of people that you know, we're talking about analysts, we're talking about fighters, yeah, they're kind of leaning towards Conor, and they're saying pretty much the same thing you're hearing, that Conor probably has the favorable chance of winning in the early rounds with a knockout. And if Cowboy could outlast those early rounds, then he might have a better chance going the distance in maybe a 5-round fight because of a little bit better gas tank. And I agree with that for the most part. Before I get into the detail, how do you feel about the general overview of this fight?
Yeah, general overview is I too am leaning toward Conor only because with Donald, you know, he's so interesting, and I love his anytime, any place, anywhere, you know, anyone, anytime, you know. But we have seen in the past, right, that brings back different returns sometimes. And although his last fight wasn't just 2 weeks ago or just 14 days ago, you know, he has still kept an incredibly fast-paced, you know, schedule, and which works for him, I guess. You know, it definitely does. But I do wonder if that fatigue and the body fatigue in the another camp, it's that constant motion. I know he probably gets into more trouble when he's not training or whatever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He likes that outlet. But it concerns me how frequently he fights. And to have somebody who fights so frequently and who has suffered losses off of, you know, because of that fast schedule, that busy schedule, versus somebody who, you know, whatever. If you look at the stuff, if you watch Countdown, if you read it, if you hear the things, old Conor's back, whatever, you know, I like what he said about not the old Conor. I'm just like reinventing. It's a brand new Conor. If what we're seeing and hearing is true, he looks to be in top form.
Agreed. I've been getting the same thing out of him. We're not seeing an overly emotional Conor. We're not seeing a Conor that's trying to sell his crazy, notorious ways. We're seeing a Conor who's saying that I have tunnel vision for this fight, and he's getting a huge payday, and he wants nothing more to win this and go on and fight for a belt after this. So I agree. I think it's going to be a tough night for Cowboy. Cowboy's kind of the guy that I'm a fan of in my heart. I love watching him fight. I've spoken about possibly fighting him one day, and but I'm a fan first. Enjoy watching him fight. Conor is Conor McGregor. I mean, it's all eyes on him when he's fighting all the time, and very deserving of it. Not only obviously because a good of a talker is, but he takes a loss now and then. But Conor is a phenomenal fighter, phenomenal athlete.
Right.
I mean, his conditioning, and he's very good everywhere. He's just known for that knockout power. Getting into this fight, though, the obvious, as we said, if Conor catches Cowboy early in the fight, Cowboy doesn't have the chin to withstand too many of those shots. Conor is fighting up at 70, right? So he's not fighting 45s and he's not fighting 55s where he was laying those guys out pretty frequently, pretty consistently. At 70, you saw Nate Diaz take Conor's best shots repeatedly, and it would bust Nate Diaz up, but it wouldn't put him down.
No, Nate got dropped in the second fight twice in the first round.
On Diaz.
Yeah.
Yes. So it would sit him down, but it wouldn't knock him out, is what I was implying.
Right.
Exactly. So Nate Diaz is one of those guys that's just too tough for his own good. So Nate Diaz will get knocked on his butt, but it's very hard to put Nate Diaz to sleep, as we've seen, especially with the Jorge Masvidal fight, where Jorge Masvidal is knocking out much bigger men out cold. Nate Diaz was able to withstand some of those shots from Jorge. So what does it tell us? Nate Diaz has an incredible chin. Yeah. He was able to withstand not going unconscious against Conor McGregor. Right. Cowboy is another bigger guy, not for welterweight, but bigger than Conor. Right. Conor said earlier in this camp, he's probably walking around at 67. So if he's walking into the cage around 67, under 70, Cowboy's probably walking around 80 come fight day. There's probably going to be a 13, 14-pound weight difference. And so Cowboys, Conor said he's not really scared about it, that it doesn't really bother him that there's a weight difference. But if I'm Cowboy, I'm using that to every advantage. You've seen that the trouble that Conor had when he fought Nate Diaz. I watched the fight again this morning. I rewatched the Nate Diaz Conor 2.
Okay, yeah.
The UFC had it on the Instagram.
Yeah.
And much of the success that Nate was having was when he put Conor against the cage. He put Conor against the cage. The bigger, heavier man then leaned on Conor, made him carry his weight, kept an underhook and head control to pin Conor against the cage. And then that's where he did his best work.
Right.
Nate Diaz, once he gets you there, likes to go body, head. You know, he likes to do the Diaz, the boxing. He'll stay on you and try to beat you up there. Cowboy could have the same great movement right there, putting him the same type of success, putting him on the cage, but finishing it more Cowboy style with better knees, elbows, and then look for the trips right there. So when we talk about the cage work or the weight differential, I see Cowboy needing to not let Conor push the pace forward and be on his heels. I think Cowboy needs to find a way to blitz Conor, put him against the cage, and use that underhook and head control to then tire Conor down, let him carry your weight. Try to use the sweep right there. Try to use his knees. He has great knees. And I think he can have some success against Conor against the cage.
I agree that against the cage is a smart idea. But I feel like Conor probably learned that lesson.
Yes.
He'll have a speed advantage. And
Conor will have the speed advantage.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he's going to have the speed advantage. I mean, it's interesting, right? I guess it was after Eddie Alvarez lost. Didn't Dustin say something like, that left hook's no joke, right? That left hand's no joke, something like that, right? I think we can't under-remember or under-represent the power that's there, too. That was able to take Jose out with one punch. Granted, y'all, that momentum, you know, there was a lot of...
Perfect timing, but
perfect storm, power. Exactly. But... Conor will have a speed advantage on Donald. He might be able to land 2 for 1. You know what I'm saying? I don't know in terms of the wearing of Cowboy down. Conor might be able to kind of hit it and quit it more effectively, get in and out, than Cowboy can. I don't know. Cowboy is very methodical, right? We've seen him break people down, and I feel that the element of surprise is also there with Conor now. We don't know who he is as a fighter right now. And that's the thing. If we go in there expecting to see the old Conor, and if you trained for the old Conor, then you'll see some tendencies in this and that. But the one thing about being gone for so long is that opportunity for reinvention, the opportunity to be somebody totally different. And again, if you're believing what John Kavanaugh is saying and the stuff that you're seeing, it could be a whole new person. Like, I'm very curious to see the new wrinkles that are added to this game. Now, granted, I don't think all of a sudden he's going to shoot on Cowboy and try to take him down. I think we still see two strikers out there, but I am very curious to see what he's learned, and what maybe he's even brought back, right? If there is old Conor stuff that he got away from and then comes back to, I just feel that there is a real sense of mystery that could be there that could take Donald a little time to figure out. And if Donald starts slowly, that's a bad night for Donald.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think Cowboy needs to keep Conor guessing at all times.
Yes.
It's throwing teeps, throwing knees, feinting shots, always keeping him guessing. And this could be like the obvious answer. Yeah, keep him guessing.
Right.
But Cowboy is very good at that. He likes to throw teeps. He likes to throw front kicks. He likes to throw counter long knees. He will shoot in the first round, just to keep that in your mind. He's very smart. And he has a very, very underestimated jab. Cowboy Cerrone dropped Ala Iaquinta with his jab. Cowboy Cerrone dropped Edson Barboza with his jab. He has a very long, powerful jab, a stiff jab that he steps in. And I feel like he could touch up Conor with that. Mm-hmm. The problem is Conor is so good at what I call a slide out. He comes right out of range, and then when you're retracting your punch, he's on his way with a counter punch. Conor hits everybody with that. When you watch the Nate Diaz fight, every time Nate tried to touch the body or jab the head, Conor had an answer with the left hand, and it landed almost every single time. Cowboy needs to be very cautious about retracting his hand, bringing his hand back, because if he leaves his hand out there too long, although he's got a phenomenal jab, Conor's going to slip out, slide out, or slip to the side, counter back, and it could be good night. But I think he needs to add those elements of teeps and shots early to get Conor a little off balance, as Khabib did.
Well, and you are a southpaw, right? So that's the other thing, right? So with Nate and Conor, southpaw, right? But so it's going to be, it is a factor.
And a factor that plays into the advantage of Conor. Historically, rather, Cowboy hasn't done that great against southpaws. He's not great at taking the liver shot from a southpaw kicker, which Conor doesn't really throw the southpaw kick that much. He does have great kicks, but he's not so much a Muay Thai kicker as much as he likes to do a spinning back heel kick to the body or the head now and then. He did get better at the low kicks against Nate Diaz in the second rematch, in the second fight rather. But Rafael dos Anjos, when he fought Cowboy, he just rushed him with that left hand. And that straight left hand, sometimes Cowboy doesn't see it coming. So I think that's something that Conor's going to have an advantage on, throwing the power left hand, slipping out of the way of Cowboy's shots. Cowboy needs to stay versatile all the time and keep Conor guessing.
So here's a question for you. The odds. John had tweeted out earlier today that as of today, this morning when he tweeted these, Conor was minus 320, Cowboy was plus 260, and then he also gave an over under on the round. So first and foremost, what do you think of those odds? Minus 320 plus 260.
I think that without me being a gambling man, I mean, I know what that means. I know Conor's the favorite, but I don't really know decisively everything. But I think that makes sense. I mean, Conor is going to be the majority of his fights, the favorite, and especially against this Cowboy fight, I think those odds make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay, so I agree with you on that one. I think those are good odds, and I too am not a gambler, so I don't know if that's a big spread. I don't know, but it does make sense if you figure former two-time champion as well. If we do take into his historical account all of the achievements and everything, that it does make sense. And also as it gets closer, one thing that will be interesting is the head game, right? If you watched Countdown, they showed some old pressers, Conor talking, crap about Donald before they were ever even really going to be rivals, talking about how he's old and he's beat up and he's this and he's tired and he's this. So even though they are cordial, and even though he sort of chose Cowboy or whatever as the opponent, I'm curious to see this week how the mental game comes in at all, because we do know Donald worries. Like, Cowboy gets stressed out. Like, he does get stressed out backstage. He is, I don't want to say vulnerable is not the right word, but you can get to him. I think you can.
Yeah, as experienced as a veteran as Cowboy is, he's admittedly said that, look, I get super nervous. Yeah. And he likes for things to just be less tense. That's why you see Cowboy smiling. That's why
Right.
you see Cowboy wanting to touch gloves in between
Don't
every
be
round.
his friend if you want to beat him.
Yeah, he wants to shake your hand at the weigh-ins, and he wants to make it like, okay, this isn't as scary, as big of a deal. We're just going to go there and have some fun. That's when he fights the best. And I get what that is. It's taking the edge off. It's taking that shot right there. Now the edge is gone. Now we're just out here having some fun. Whatever happens, happens.
Right.
I don't think Conor will fall into that. Conor, as we know, is a master of the mind games. Cowboy has his own mind games. I think they will be respectful, but Conor will stand his ground. If he doesn't want to touch gloves, I'm not going to touch gloves. Right. If he doesn't want to do this, Conor will dictate what he wants to do in this fight. There was something else I wanted to touch on. Oh, when you talk about the mind games as well and the history amongst these two, Conor, let's not forget, Conor picked this fight. Conor could have came back and fought anyone in the UFC probably that he wanted. Obviously, the Khabib-Tony fight is already made, but he picked Cowboy, and he's kind of always been talking about Cowboy for a while. When he's referred to, I see that division as a stick in the mud. He was referring to Cowboy in that presser. He was referring to Cowboy. Cowboy's kind of upright fighting style. Nothing flashy about his footwork, although he's flashy in his diversity. Cowboy could be somewhat flat-footed, stand in the pocket, and counter. Conor always saw that and thought, you know what? I like this matchup. He's a tall guy that stands there. He's a hittable target, and he doesn't fare great against southpaws. Conor is all the opposite things, all the things I just mentioned. Conor came back for this fight. When he was asked in his interview, why did you pick this fight? I think he went around the question. I think he went around the real answer, and he said, I respect Cowboy. It's a fun fight. I know he'll bring it. Realistically, I don't think it's a smart fight to come back and call out Jorge Masvidal your first fight. I don't think it's a smart fight to come back and say, I want Khabib or somebody like that right away. I think it is a smart fight, with all due respect to my man Cowboy, to say, you know what? Cowboy's a name, and he's a guy that everybody will watch, but he's a very beatable fight, and it's a very winnable fight. And that is why he took this fight, because he knows it's going to make a bunch of money, and the percentages are heavily more in his favor than it would have been going for a rematch against Khabib or trying to fight a champion in a welterweight division or a Masvidal in a welterweight division. Well,
yeah, I absolutely agree. And the other thing is, too, is Conor, and again, it's in no way, shape, or form is Donald Cerrone a tune-up fight. In no way, shape, or form. But Conor,
it could be a favorable matchup, but not a tune-up fight.
Exactly. But he needs this win desperately. Conor does. And I think whether or not he wants to admit it, his heart's going to be pounding out of his chest when he's walking into that octagon. He's going to be stressing out. The dude can't lose, right? He has to win. He has to win. So I agree that pulling off a Jorge Masvidal or somebody else really high up with a really high consequences as well would be a lot to bite off for a return fight where you've admitted you screwed up and you got ahead of, you let the trappings distract you, and you admit you haven't trained that hard in a long time, all of that stuff. So if he's really being real, if he's really getting truthful with himself, this is a great fight for him, and it is a must win. And it's maybe a reset button for him or something. And Donald is good enough and respected enough, and all those records he holds. So winning Donald, beating Donald still really means something. It really does still mean something. And even if you lose to Donald, it really does still mean something, because look who everybody else lost to Donald. Yeah. I just agree that it is the perfect fight, but I do think that, like, Conor, is probably actually going to be, even though he might bust out some head games, a little bit more contrite, internally than we're used to seeing. Wade wanted to show me something. He says Conor hasn't had a drink in 3 to 4 months, allegedly, in this latest thing. So that's good, because the proper 12 looked like maybe he was pulling on that a little bit. Yeah. So, he admitted, with the Khabib fight, he wasn't focused and all that stuff. My question to you, though, Alan, the other thing on this fight is the over-under for only 1.5 rounds. They're saying over 1.5 rounds is -125, under 1.5 rounds -105. Basically, everybody thinks this is going to be a pretty quick fight.
So that was what I was going to get to anyway, to answer your question. What am I picking? I don't quite have that answer for you, but maybe I'll figure it out when I say this. Yeah. I'm hoping that the fight makes it into the 3rd round at least. I think, that's where we get to see what's really happening. Once the nerves, wear down, once the pace gets to a real fight pace, and once the distance becomes, okay, now we're strike for strike. Now we're not 6 feet apart. Now we're 3 feet apart, and everything could land at any moment. And that's when we get to see the heart, the cardio, the determination. I love seeing those factors. I mean, that's why Fight of the Nights are Fight of the Nights, because you get to see these amazing fights, and you get to see people dig deep, and you have time for people to come back and face adversity and make changes in the corner. And so I hope we get to see that. When you look at the 2 fights between Nate Diaz and Conor, although the first fight went only to the second round, when Conor was submitted, the second fight went 5 rounds. And you got to see Conor digging deep and strategizing. You got to see Nate get knocked down 3 times and come back and still
it was so great.
Yeah, still slapping. It makes the fight intriguing. It makes it enticing. It makes it such a fun fight. We, the fans, get to see who's digging the deepest. I hope to see that. As beautiful as the highlight reel, the Jose Aldo knockout was, I do not want to see that happen in this fight with either man. I want to see this fight slow down, and I want to see these guys get bloody and have some respect for one another in those championship rounds, in those 4th and 5th rounds.
I agree, and I have such respect for both of these fighters. One thing I do think that is interesting is how many people just really, really want to see Conor get his ass kicked. You know what I mean? So there is a real big a wave of support for Cowboy here. There is a whole bunch of this audience that really wants Conor to get his ass kicked, which is very interesting. I'm
curious, Karyn, do you think there's a bigger than normal wave, or do you think there's more people wanting Conor to lose rather than win, or how do you see it?
I don't know. I think a lot of people really wanted him to lose to Khabib. I think more people wanted him to lose to Khabib than they did to Cowboy, but I think for as many people who want Conor back, and I've said this before on this show, and I'll say it all the time, I believe MMA is more fun with him in it. I believe it's more fun when he's active, he's engaging, he's entertaining, he puts eyeballs on everybody. There is a trickle-down effect when you're working on a card with a Conor fight on it. It's good for everybody. I think it's good business for everybody. I'm not trying to get into he makes more than you and da-da-da-da-da. I'm not talking about that. But an active out of trouble Conor is a very, very, very good thing for everybody. And I'm happy he's back, quote unquote back. Hopefully the things that he's done outside get taken care of, or get if he needs to be punished, he needs to be punished. I'm not even gonna get into that right now because all these legal things, whatever. But to your point, yes, I do think there's a lot of people that are hoping this is the last hurrah and they never see him again. I do think that. Yeah.
I see it a little bit like this. And so I don't know if we're quite seeing it the same way, but I like getting your take from it, because all I really know is what I see on social media, and in terms of how people feel. And social media is not a great place to go and read comments. It can get you into a rabbit hole real quickly. But I remember seeing something about the lead up to this fight on, I think, one of the UFC's posts. And one of the fighters, I don't remember who it was, but a UFC fighter, it was the Korean Zombie. The Korean Zombie put Cowboy ! Under the promo video. And you should have seen how quickly Conor's people jumped on it and said, "You're garbage, you're trash, you're nothing."
No.
They were jumping on people. Anybody who sided with Cowboy was getting jumped right away. Social media jumped. And so I found it kind of remarkable that the thing that I took from this is Conor is a huge star and has a huge following. And so if he's got 1 million followers, then probably 900,000 of those are his fans and 100,000 are his haters. So if he's got 50 million followers, you do the math. With more fans comes more haters, more lovers as well, more friends. But you're always going to have that percentage of people that are rooting for you to lose. And Conor being the biggest that he has ever been in terms of recognizable person around the world, that also does have the biggest hater staff, hoping that he loses around farms around the world. So what I'm getting is, I don't know if the percentages of the Conor love or hate has changed. I just think he's such a big name in the sport that you're going to get people regardless on both sides going to battle. Yeah,
it's interesting because I can't say in this whole entire world, there might be somebody hosting a TV show that I wish I could host, and I'm really hoping for them to fail, right? If I'm being honest.
Not me, right?
Yeah. But in general, I'm not I like to see success, right? So I think that's what it is. There's different kinds of people. Some people see him with all his success and they're really pissed off and can't wait to see him fall. And other people are motivated and inspired by seeing somebody's success because they can find it too. And it actually, in sort of closing this up, one of the things that he said one time at a press conference, Conor said, and I remember, maybe if I'm not even quoting it exactly, but he said, winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners. And I thought that was so interesting, and I really just loved that mentality. Like, yeah, I'm here to win. I don't really care what's in the rear, But that mindset of always wondering, well, what are they doing? Well, shit, what are they? Well, he's doing. You're not gonna win when you're doing that. And I really thought that was a really well sort of said, well succinct way to kind of process the whole thing. I thought that was very smart.
I agree. I mean, he's a smart guy. He's a well-spoken guy. He takes a good approach to fighting. The things that he says, he has his bad moments. Yeah. But all in all, he really is a smart guy in the way that he approaches everything. The stuff that he says, the quotes, the sound bites that you get from him, you can tell that everything is well thought out. Yeah. And he does have a positive mentality. I mean, he talks about when he comes to fighting, he's only thinking about the success. He's not thinking about the rearview mirror, as you're saying. He's not worried about that other stuff. I'm floored for the fight. I can't wait to see it. Again, I don't know what's going to happen. I lean in the favor of Conor. Conor's got the better chin and the more power, and he's the faster fighter. So he's got more check marks. Right. Cowboy has kind of my heart, and he's got the arsenal to do something. Again, as long as this gets past the second round, I would be pretty happy. I just want to see a great fight amongst both men.
And let's not forget, Alan, a year ago in Brooklyn, Cowboy put the lights out on Alexander Hernandez. So
yes. And look, that was a big, strong guy pressing forward, coming. Cowboy was able to withstand that early rush in the first round and come back and show, you do that sneaky head kick. So Conor's got to keep his hands up. Cowboy's got real sneaky head kicks. Yep.
All right. Well, folks, that does it for the talk about Conor and Cowboy. We are going to talk about some other things on the podcast as well. So just hang with us, and we've got a lot more on the way. All right, folks, let's continue on with the MMA Heat podcast talking about UFC 246, and we've already covered Cowboy and Conor. So, Alan, let me read to you the rest of the main card, just to refresh your memory here. We have Holly Holm versus Rocky Pennington. That is a rematch. The first time they met, I believe it was on the same fight you were on in L.A. when Holly beat Rocky by decision.
I believe that was Holly Holm's debut.
I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I believe that was Holly Holm's debut into the UFC as well.
That's right. I think you're right. I remember seeing her hair was like, oh my God, and that she's just so yoked. I was like, that woman is amazing. So then we have Alexia Oleinik versus Maurice Green. Oleinik, obviously the boa constrictor. He's incredible. Maurice Green was on The Ultimate Fighter, and he's actually been doing pretty well. But then we have Claudia Gadelha versus Alexa Grasso. I like that fight a lot. Claudia was supposed to fight a little while ago. She had an injury, and they were able to, get this together for another time. So Alexa Grasso lost to Carla Esparza last September down in Mexico City. It was a close fight. I do think Carla won that one. Then we also have Pettis versus Diego Ferreira, Carlos Diego Ferreira. And Alan, that seems to be the one they're promoting sort of more on the main card after Conor and Cerrone. But then we have Modafferi versus Barber, Fili versus Yusuff, Drew Dober versus Haqparast, and Chaz Skelly versus Grant Dawson. There's a lot of great fights on this card. That's the prelims and the main card. So what else is standing out to you besides that main event?
I mean, when I look at it, so I'll be honest. I'll be completely honest with you guys. All we've heard is Conor Cowboy. Cowboy. I forgot there was anybody else on the card. So thankfully, when they started showing the card, promoting the rest of the card a little more today on social media, I was like, oh, let me see who else is fighting. At first glance, I feel like the UFC is trying to save money because I hear Conor thinks he's there to estimated to make possibly $80 million. Right. He's making a buttload of money. I feel like they couldn't put some of their higher earning fighters on the roster on this card because there's so much money going to the main event. Right. Yeah. So this is kind of a sleeper when you look at the card. Not a lot of huge names in terms of there's some names, obviously Pettis in the co-main event. But you know what I'm saying? There's not a lot of huge names or guys that demand a lot of money. But it could be one of those nights where it's a little bit looked over. Some of the fights that are good matchups that have some really good back and forth. And the one, when I think about really good matchups, I'm talking about Touchy Fili. And I always forget his opponent's name, although I'm really a fan.
Sodiq Yusuff.
Sodiq.
Sodiq
Sodiq is a beast, man.
He's good.
I watched.
He beat your boy. He beat your boy Shaman.
He beat Shaman Moraes. He looked phenomenal. So did Touchy Fili. Fili actually was able to KO Shaman. Sorry, Shaman. I didn't bring all that up on the show, man. We got nothing but love for you.
Yeah, Shaman's a good dude.
Both guys are on the rise right now. Both guys are kind of like for lack of a better word, trending in that division, man. I mean, these guys are like making their way up to the top, and so for them to pair those two guys up on the prelim card on a huge fight like this with Conor and them in the main event, that's the fight that I'm definitely not going to be moving from the couch to watch. These guys should go back and forth, and I see the winner of this fight really calling out a big name, calling out somebody at the very top of the division. Well,
if we may as well stick on the prelims then, since you went with that Fili Sodiq Yusuff card, which I also which I also agree is going to be very good. And to Shaman, you know, I remember I told you I was riding up in the elevator after their fight, and Sodiq told me, he's like, we had no idea Shaman was that good. Like, he's like, we really underestimated that dude. He's like, not to say he got lucky, but he was like, yeah, that was a way harder fight than I thought that was going to be, you know.
He's a really tough guy.
Yeah, Sodiq is definitely another one of those African fighters on the rise, like making his mark. He's very, very good, and just seems to be in a good headspace too. Like there's I mean, obviously too, with Fili coming out of Team Alpha Male, we know how solid those guys are. I agree with you. That's a very good fight. But in terms of the prelims, if I'm talking about that personally, I'm actually looking forward to Maycee Barber versus Roxanne Modafferi, if only because of what's been going on. You know, Maycee is so feisty and, you know, talking about going to be the youngest champ and all this stuff. And I don't know if you saw anything on social media, but with her and Roxy was texting her or something, or telling her about the bathtub situation for when they're trying to cut weight in the hotel and this week. And, you know, Roxy is like the nicest, sweetest girl on the planet. And it's interesting because Maycee's being so feisty and, like, you know, she's and she's up against the happy, peaceful warrior. And so the head games that Maycee's trying aren't gonna work on Roxy. I don't think. It's almost like the reverse. I think the reverse head games of Roxy being so like unbothered might be weird for Maycee, because I think she likes a little pushback, right? Because the whole thing with her and Paige about them not fighting, like, I think Maycee, she is so young and feisty, like she needs a little pushback, and you're not going to get that from Roxanne. You're just going to get a fighter who keeps getting better, who's consistent, who has almost who's like exceeded her potential. And I know that sounds like a really weird backhanded compliment. I mean it only as 100% of a compliment. That if you remember when she was, you know, in the UFC before, or on Tough and in Invicta, she was always kind of awkward, and she, you know, she is awkward. She doesn't look like a natural born athlete, but hard work pays off, and Roxanne is doing so well. She beat Antonina Shevchenko. She was the first one to beat her in MMA. So I think Maycee needs to. I'm not saying Maycee isn't going to win, because Maycee probably can. Right? She certainly can. Young, powerful, strong girl with a lot of aggression and just a lot. But I'm seeing the Anthony Hernandez Cowboy situation with it. You know what I mean? With somebody just barking, and they got to be careful, because the veteran might still have a little bite that they're just not aware of.
Yeah, I mean, she's a. I mean, you say veteran. I mean, she has been in women's MMA as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And she's not the most athletic person out there. She is the peaceful warrior. But when she gets a hold of you and she gets her hands around you, she finds ways to submit you. She's so crafty on the ground. You have to put her away, otherwise she's going to find a way to get on you.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that. That is going to be a fun one on the prelims. Curious, Alan, your take on Pettis versus Ferreira, though, because this is the one, if you're watching Countdown, this is the sort of fight that they're kind of promoting a little bit more as a featured event that everybody should see. So Anthony Pettis going back to 55.
Okay.
He dabbled at 70 where he knocked out Wonder Boy. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. But Ferreira has been steadily doing very, very well. The only thing I have to say about Ferreira, Alan, and I'm curious your take on this, he's doing very well. But the two bumps in the road came to Poirier and Beneil, right? Like his two losses recently came from like the two best people he fought. Coming on against a former champion now, like this is certainly his toughest test.
Is he a guy that that is winning in the division, but when he faces the adversity at the top of the mountain, he falls short. We're going to have to see. I'm not that familiar. Obviously, I'm not as familiar with Ferreira as I am with Pettis. And I didn't get to go watch the countdown. So I feel like all these fights are kind of news to me, to be honest. Like, it's been so heavily promoted for the main event that all the other fights kind of fell short, and I haven't heard much about them. Pettis is a guy, though, that I'm kind of just always a fan of, always rooting for in a way. And to show the toughness, look, Pettis is a guy that's had his losses. Yeah. But some of these losses, like when he lost to Max Holloway, and I think his hand was broken, when he was going to war against Tony Ferguson, and he was all busted up. Yeah. So on and so on. Pettis has had his losses, but Pettis has tremendous heart, man. He's like a pretty boy-looking guy, and he has a finesse style of fighting.
I didn't know.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, he's got that look and his style of fighting. He's not like a barn burner. He's a barn burner, but you know what I'm saying? He's a guy that's going to trick you. He's going to set something up. You're going to take the bait. He's going to put you away, and he's going to wipe his eyebrows and go put a gold chain on. He's a finesse fighter, but he's got tremendous heart, and I think that's what people learn about him when they get in there with him. So I'm excited to see him. I hope he's healthy for this fight, and both men can go in there and put on a war.
Yeah, I like Anthony a lot. I like his style. I like his flash. Like he's a really nice guy. And I do. I like a lot about Anthony, especially the fact that when it comes time to fight, it's time to fight. Like, he shows up. Have you ever seen a boring Anthony Pettis fight?
Right. No.
Never. And you never will. You know, he never will. The guy went down to 45, beat Charles Oliveira, goes up to 70, beats Wonderboy, former champion, you know, all of this stuff. So there's so much about Anthony that makes you point to him as the winner. There's just a lot going on. I know the fight with Nate didn't go his way, but it was a tough fight. Nate, you know, Nate's really good too, you know.
He's just a pressure fighter. Anthony doesn't do well with pressure. He wants his space so he can do his setups. He had no time to set up stuff. Right. But
I think it's good to go back down to 55 for him. And it's just it will be telling, because like I said, with Ferreira, his last fights, just to remind you, Alan, so he has been winning, right? So he is on a 5-fight win streak. The last one was Marbek Taisimov. Before that, he beat Khabilov. Before that, Kyle Nelson, Jared Flash Gordon, who trains with Pettis, and Olivier Aubin-Mercier. So he beat those 5 guys in a row.
Oh, yeah.
But that's after he lost to Beneil, and then he followed that up and lost to Dustin Poirier. So that's what I'm talking about. And again, no disrespect to Jared Gordon, any of these guys, Taisimov, any of these guys. OAM is great. They're all very, very good, but the 2 guys that were better are the 2 guys that he lost to.
Yeah, the 2 guys that he lost to are in the same realm as far as how good they are as Anthony Pettis. So we're going to have to see if he's able to step up his game in this fight.
Exactly. And like I just said, Jared Gordon is one of Anthony's teammates. So there is some information there, too, that he might be able to give to Anthony. You know, that obviously when they're breaking down tape, he can be like, and also, by the way, this is what his punch actually feels like, you know. So it's interesting. Anthony's just a guy, and no disrespect to Diego, Anthony's just a guy I root for. Like, in general, I just do. He, you know, I honestly, and it all really comes back to, and I've said this before, the night that he won his title when we were in Minneapolis, Milwaukee. And,
back home,
you know, he came to the desk and we were both talking about the fact that our fathers had passed on. And, you know, it was just something that really resonated with me that night. And ever since then, I've just always rooted, you know, he's a good dude. So hope he doesn't get hurt. Let's just say that. Nobody gets hurt in this fight. But it is a really big fight night this week. And then the next week we're off to North Carolina. So the machine is ramping up again, Alan. The machine.
Yeah, we had a little time off, right? I mean, it's been like football and other things.
Yeah.
Well, I've been watching a lot of movies, watching a lot of football.
Yeah.
Fighting is coming back. We're about to get on the horse again. What's the fight night after the pay-per-view?
It's Dos Santos versus Curtis Blades.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
And you're on that one.
Yeah, going to North Carolina. So that'll be a good time. Okay, folks. So remember, we broke down Cowboy versus Conor in the first part of our podcast. So if you're listening to this audio-wise and you're watching it on YouTube, you know that because you already saw it. But if you're catching this on Instagram or Facebook or anywhere else, you should know that we have kind of broken it up. And if you want to get the main event talk, you can find that in a separate place, right? Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, Alan. So, Alan,
I don't know. I thought it was wrapped up.
I know. Okay. So then lastly, Alan, everybody always needs an injury update on you. How's the knee feeling?
Knee's going good. You know, I'm still kind of letting my hamstring heal up because the ACL, they took a graft from the hamstring, so that causes the hamstring to heal slower than normal. But the knee's starting to feel great for only 2 months out. Trying to get my hamstring strong, but healing up, feeling good about it.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, well, on social media, I can be found at Karyn Bryant on Twitter and on YouTube and on Facebook. It's KB Heat. On Instagram, we have MMA Heat across the board everywhere else. Alan, where can they find you?
Yeah, and check me out as well, guys, at Alan Jouban on all social media platforms.
Awesome. And now all of our shows are also on MMAheat.com, and they are audio downloads at MMA.audio, which is also iTunes or something. Wade figures that out. I just stand here. Actually, I'm sitting today. So anyway, that is it. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, the year is off to a great start. Hopefully everybody's years are chugging along well so far, but thanks for checking out the show.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
See ya.